I will have my revenge, no matter the cost.
I never thought I would be the one to feel the sting of betrayal. But that's exactly what happened, and it happened at the hands of the one person I never expected, Daniel. I sat in my quarters, the heavy wooden desk before me littered with battle plans, diplomatic letters, and maps of the kingdom. My eyes should have been focused on the important matters of war, the destiny of my people hanging in the balance. But instead, my thoughts kept wandering back to one thing, one person, Daniel. Daniel. The man I once called my brother. It started out so innocently. The whispers at first were just that, whispers. I told myself it was paranoia. That they couldn't be true. There was no way that Daniel, my closest friend, my confidant, would ever betray me. But as the days wore on, the rumors started to take shape. Things started to fall into place. That night, the night I found out, the moon was a thin crescent, barely casting any light over the city below. The perfect kind of night for betrayal, I suppose. I had followed a trail of whispers to the castle's lower halls, the kind of halls only the most trusted of the kingdom's generals knew well. I could hear the muffled voices of Daniel and someone else, but when I peered around the corner, my world shattered in an instant. There he was, Daniel, standing next to a man I didn't recognize, but I knew he wasn't one of us. His eyes were dark, filled with coldness, and there was something unsettling about the way he spoke with Daniel. I couldn't hear everything, but what I did hear. "I'll make sure he doesn't suspect a thing," Daniel's voice said, low and serious. "The plans are in motion. The king's trust is solid, but he doesn't need to know about our arrangement, not yet." A chill ran through me as I leaned back against the stone wall, my heart hammering in my chest. My hand gripped the stone, steadying myself as I processed what I had just heard. Daniel had conspired with the enemy? Had gone behind my back? The man I'd trusted with my life, who had been there beside me through every battle, every challenge, he was the very reason my kingdom was now vulnerable. I stumbled back, my mind reeling. I should have confronted him right then, but my body wouldn't move. Instead, I listened. I needed to hear more, to make sure that I wasn't hearing things. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. "It's all for the kingdom's greater good," the stranger continued, his voice sending a surge of rage through my veins. "But we'll need to act quickly. You know how these things go. The king can't know until it's too late." It hit me like a punch to the gut. Daniel was working with them, plotting behind my back. I had no idea how long this had been going on, but I was certain of one thing: he had betrayed me. Betrayed his kingdom. My kingdom. And there was nothing I could do about it. Not yet. Not with the war approaching. But I would make him pay. I stepped back into the shadows, heart pounding. I had always prided myself on trusting the people around me. Daniel, more than anyone, had earned that trust. We'd fought together, bled together. He was my family. And yet, in a heartbeat, he had ripped that all away. The moment I left the castle, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. My anger wasn't just directed at Daniel. No. I was angry at myself, angry for not seeing the signs, for being so blind to what was happening under my nose. I had trusted him with everything. And now, I felt like a fool. The next few days were a blur. I threw myself into my duties, pretending as if nothing had happened, but inside everything had shifted. I couldn't let anyone see the cracks. No one could know what I'd learned. Not yet. Not until I figured out how to make this right. I couldn't let Daniel's treachery tear apart the kingdom. Not when we were so close to victory. But I knew one thing, my world was never going to be the same. The man I thought I knew had become a stranger, and I couldn't let him get away with it. Each night, the anger gnawed at me, the betrayal coursing through my veins like fire. I couldn't sleep. The visions of Daniel, of the plans he'd made, consumed me. I had to act, and I had to do it fast. If I didn't, the enemy would have the upper hand. But I wasn't just fighting for my kingdom anymore. No. Now, I was fighting for justice, and for my broken heart. Daniel would pay for this. And when I finally confronted him, when I finally made him face what he had done to me, to everything I stood for, there would be no more excuses. He'd made his choice, and now I would make mine. But what hurt the most, what stung like a wound that would never heal, was that I had truly loved him. Trusted him. And now, it was gone. Just like that. Everything we had built together, everything we had been to each other, had been shattered by one act of betrayal. I was torn between the man I once called my brother and the king I was becoming. But there was one thing I knew for certain, Daniel would regret the day he ever crossed me. The days following my discovery of Daniel's betrayal passed in a haze. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't focus on anything. Every moment of peace, every fleeting sense of normalcy, was shattered by the weight of what I now knew. Daniel, my closest friend, the man I once considered a brother, had conspired against me. Against everything we had fought for. I sat at my desk late into the night, the room lit only by the soft glow of a single candle. The flickering flame cast long shadows across the room, and I could feel the darkness closing in around me. The kingdom, the people I swore to protect, were in jeopardy because of one person's greed. And I had been blind to it. How could I have been so blind? I gripped the edges of the desk, my knuckles white with tension. The betrayal burned in my chest, a constant ache that wouldn't go away. My thoughts spiraled, racing with questions that had no answers. How long had Daniel been planning this? Had I ever really known him? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. The man I had trusted, the man I had fought alongside, now a stranger who had thrown everything away for power. Power he knew he could never have without me. And now, it was gone. But what was I to do with this betrayal? What was I supposed to do now that everything had changed? I had to act. I couldn't ignore this. The kingdom's safety was at stake, and so was my honor. But there was a part of me, the part that had always believed in loyalty, that struggled with the idea of revenge. Revenge. I leaned back in my chair, staring out of the window at the moonlit sky. My reflection was barely visible in the glass, a shadow of the man I used to be. What am I becoming? For the past few days, I'd wrestled with the decision. Should I expose Daniel? Should I confront him in front of the council and risk shattering everything we had worked for? Should I take the moral high ground and let him walk away, knowing that justice would somehow find him in the end? But every time I thought about letting him go, about pretending I hadn't seen the signs, about allowing him to slither back into the shadows of our kingdom, I felt sick. There could be no peace, no justice, without consequences. He had betrayed me, betrayed our friendship, betrayed everything we had stood for. And that was the moment I knew. Revenge was the only answer. The cost would be high. It would tear apart everything I had built, everything I had once believed in. But in that moment, I realized I had no choice. If I didn't confront this, if I didn't take back control, I would lose everything. My honor, my kingdom, and even the man I thought I was. I would make him pay. I stood up, my mind made up, but my body heavy with the weight of my decision. It was one thing to know what I had to do. It was another to face the consequences of it. Every step I took from here on out would be one I couldn't undo. I walked to the map on the wall, tracing the path to the heart of the kingdom, where Daniel had gone into hiding. There was a certain irony to it. The man who had once been my closest ally, my confidant, now reduced to a coward, hiding in the shadows. He would never know peace again. Not while I was still standing. But it wasn't just about justice for the kingdom. It was about reclaiming the man I used to be. The man who had trusted his friends, who believed that honor mattered above all else. The man who, at one point, would never have dreamed of taking vengeance into his own hands. But now I had no choice. I could almost hear Daniel's voice, echoing in my mind, trying to justify his actions. The lies he would weave, the promises he would make. But I wouldn't listen to them. I couldn't afford to be weak anymore. My kingdom was built on strength, on loyalty. And it would remain that way, no matter what it cost me. I turned away from the map, my decision solidified. It was time to move. There was no turning back. My eyes burned with the resolve I hadn't felt in days. I would go to him. I would make him understand what it meant to betray someone like me. But even as I made my plans, a small part of me whispered doubt. Is this the man I want to become? I shook my head, silencing the voice. This wasn't about becoming someone else. This was about becoming the man I needed to be to protect everything I had left. For the first time in days, I felt the weight of my crown settle heavily on my head. This was what it meant to be king. This was my duty. And as I prepared to leave my quarters, I knew one thing for certain: Daniel would regret the day he ever crossed me. The cold wind hit me as I stepped outside into the courtyard, and I felt the weight of the decision press on me with each passing step. There was no room for weakness now. Not for me. Not for anyone. I couldn't shake the thoughts. They lingered in my mind, clawing at the edges of every waking moment. Daniel. Betrayer. I had always thought I knew him. But now, the veil had been ripped away, and all that was left was the raw truth, a truth I wasn't ready to face. I had already known the surface of it. He'd betrayed me, that much was clear. But as I dug deeper, I began to see just how far Daniel had gone. The level of his manipulation was more calculated than I could have imagined. What he had done to me wasn't a moment of weakness, it was part of a long, careful plan. And I had been blind to it all. I remember the first time I began to notice something off. I had always trusted Daniel implicitly, his advice, his judgment, his loyalty. We were like brothers. But something felt wrong now. There was a distance in his eyes I couldn't ignore. He didn't seem like the man I once knew, and that thought consumed me. I began my search the only way I knew how, by going back. Back to the conversations we had shared, the moments we had laughed over drinks and made decisions that changed the course of the kingdom. But now, every word, every gesture felt different. Every conversation I replayed in my head was tainted by the knowledge of his betrayal. I couldn't find one instance where I hadn't been played. How could I have been so blind? I started pulling at the threads, small things at first. The meetings he had without me, the alliances he'd forged that I wasn't aware of. I went to his closest confidants, questioning them under the guise of routine intelligence. They were reluctant to give me anything, but after days of subtle pressure, a few cracks started to show. whispers of secret meetings with enemy leaders, of promises made in shadows, of plans that didn't involve me at all. The anger started small, a burning ache in the pit of my stomach. But as the evidence piled up, so did the fire. Daniel wasn't just plotting against me, he was plotting against everything we had built. Against the kingdom we had sworn to protect. Against the very values I thought we shared. I found documents, written proof of his dealings, plans that extended far beyond personal gain. The depths of his manipulation were staggering. Daniel had been working with the enemy for years, and I had never known. All the trust one had placed in him, all the years of friendship, had been used to further his own ambitions. He had played me, played us all, as pawns in a game I had no idea I was even part of. I could feel my pulse quicken as I read through the papers. My hands shook with the weight of it. I had spent so much time believing in his loyalty, in his friendship, that I couldn't see what was right in front of me. He had used me. Used my trust, my love for the kingdom, as leverage to get what he wanted. And now, there was no going back. The anger I felt was unbearable. I wanted to confront him, to demand answers. To see the look in his eyes when he realized I knew the truth. But I knew I had to be careful. Daniel was always 3 steps ahead, always calculating his next move. I had to think, I had to plan. And if I was going to bring him down, I couldn't make a single mistake. I spent the next few days alone in my chambers, poring over the information I had gathered. I walked through every moment I had shared with him, wondering where I went wrong. How could I have missed the signs? What did he want from me? Each discovery led to more questions. The truth wasn't just a betrayal of me, it was a betrayal of everything I had worked for. And that made my rage boil over. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I couldn't let it go. Daniel had used me, manipulated me, and now I had to stop him before he tore everything apart. There was no room for hesitation anymore. I had to act. I had to put an end to this, and I would do whatever it took. But deep down, there was a voice inside me, small and faint, that reminded me that this wasn't just about revenge. It was about the kingdom, the people who trusted me, the alliances we had made. And yet, in my heart, all I could think about was how much Daniel had hurt me. How much he had betrayed me. I clenched my fists. Revenge was the only option now. The lines between justice and obsession began to blur. I couldn't control it anymore. Every part of me wanted to burn everything he had built to the ground. But there was a part of me that knew that revenge would cost me more than I could imagine. It would cost me everything. As the days passed, my resolve only hardened. I began to understand the extent of Daniel's treachery, and with each new piece of information, my anger grew. But it was no longer just anger, it was a hunger for justice, for a reckoning. He had taken everything from me, from us, and I wasn't going to let him get away with it. Daniel had made his move, but now it was my turn. And I would make sure that he paid the price for everything he had done. I walked to the window, staring out over the kingdom. The city lights flickered below, a reflection of the darkness that had settled in my heart. The winds of change were coming, and Daniel wouldn't know what hit him. The cold stone walls of the castle seemed to close in on me as I walked through the dimly lit corridors, the weight of the moment bearing down with each step. The echoes of my footsteps only amplified the pounding in my chest. I had finally found him. Daniel. I could feel my hands trembling, not from fear but from the sheer anger boiling within me. Anger, it was all I had left now. I had spent so long chasing answers, piecing together the betrayals and lies, and now the moment had arrived. The man who once stood by my side, the man I called a brother, was now my enemy. I had never imagined this day would come, yet here I was, standing at the precipice of my own undoing. As I reached the grand hall, I saw him. Daniel stood there, casually leaning against one of the stone pillars, as if he hadn't a care in the world. His usual confident smile was there, but it wasn't the same. It was colder. More calculating. He had aligned himself with the enemy, and the knowledge cut deeper than any blade ever could. My throat tightened as I looked at him. "You look surprised," Daniel said, his voice smooth, almost mocking. He didn't move from his position, but I could see the glint of satisfaction in his eyes. It was the same glint I remembered from years ago, the glint of a man who believed he was always in control. I clenched my fists, taking a step forward. "You think this is some kind of game?" I spat, the words leaving my mouth like venom. "You betrayed everything we stood for. Our friendship, the kingdom, me." Daniel's lips curled into a smirk. "You still don't understand, do you?" he said, his tone calm, detached. "It was never about loyalty or friendship. It was about power. Something you'll never understand. I did what I had to do to survive. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to tear him apart right there, to make him feel the weight of what he'd done. But I held back, knowing this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about everything he had jeopardized. You used me," I said, my voice breaking with the weight of the truth. "You used me, and you used the kingdom. All for your own gain. And now you're going to sit there, acting like it doesn't matter?" Daniel's eyes narrowed, and he finally pushed himself off the pillar, standing tall. "What do you want from me, Michael?" he asked, his voice growing colder. "You want me to apologize? To beg for your forgiveness? That's not going to happen. I did what I had to do, just like you would've." I felt a surge of fury, my chest tight with the need to lash out. "No," I said through gritted teeth. "What you did was destroy everything we built. You tore apart the one thing that meant anything to me." Daniel's lips twitched, and he stepped closer, his presence looming over me. "Oh, please," he sneered. "Don't pretend like you didn't see this coming. You were always too naive to see the bigger picture. Your idealism was your weakness. Our weakness." The words cut deeper than I wanted to admit. The truth behind them was suffocating. I had trusted him, believed in him, thought we were on the same path. Now, I realized how foolish I'd been. He wasn't the man I thought he was. He was a stranger. A manipulator. "I'm not the one who's been blinded," I growled. "You've chosen your side, and I'll make you pay for it. For everything." Daniel's expression darkened, but his voice remained eerily calm. "You're still hung up on the past, Michael. It's pathetic. You've lost, and you still don't see it. I've already won." He took a step back, his arms crossing over his chest as he eyed me, sizing me up. "The question is, will you keep fighting a losing battle, or will you accept the truth? Will you stick to your honor, or will you do what needs to be done?" I stared at him, my mind racing. His words rang in my ears, pulling me in every direction. Honor? Was that all I had left? My loyalty? My ideals? Was it worth it anymore? I didn't know. I wasn't sure. But one thing was clear, I couldn't let him walk away from this. "You're wrong," I said, my voice low but steady. "I will make you pay for this. You may think you've won, but there's still time. Time for me to fix what you've destroyed." Daniel chuckled darkly, stepping closer until his face was mere inches from mine. "Then come at me, Michael. Show me what you're really capable of." You know where I stand." His words were like a challenge, daring me to make my move. I felt my blood boil. This was it. This was the moment I had been waiting for. The confrontation I knew was inevitable. But as much as I wanted to strike him down, to end it all, something inside me held me back. Something deep within me knew that if I let this consume me, if I allowed my anger to dictate my actions, I would become just like him. But the question was, could I walk away from this? Could I truly turn my back on revenge? "Maybe you've already lost, Daniel," I said, my voice steady, though the words felt heavy in my chest. "And maybe you don't even know it yet." He laughed again, but there was no humor in it. "We'll see," he said. "We'll see." I stood there, staring at him, my heart pounding, my mind racing with everything that had led up to this moment. But for the first time, I felt something shift. The rage that had driven me for so long, the obsession with making him pay, seemed to fade just a little. A new determination took its place. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming everything I had lost, about taking back control of my own life. And no matter what happened next, I knew I had to be ready for the choice that lay ahead. As Daniel turned his back and walked away, the anger still simmered within me, but the fire wasn't as intense as before. I wasn't sure what the future held, but one thing was certain: the path I was on would lead me to a final choice. And when that moment came, I would be ready. The cold emptiness of the room reflects the void that's settled deep in my chest. I've spent so many nights poring over plans, strategies, and tactics, all to exact my revenge. But now, as I sit here alone, the weight of it all presses down on me like 1,000 tons of stone. I should be happy. Daniel's betrayal is almost avenged, the pieces are falling into place, but I feel nothing but hollow satisfaction. No joy. No relief. I stand and walk over to the window, staring out at the kingdom I've sworn to protect. The city looks so small from up here, almost peaceful in its quiet chaos. But I know better. I know that everything I've done, every decision I've made, has set in motion something much darker. The kingdom will never be the same. Not because of the enemy I've fought, but because of the enemy I've become. The smell of fresh ink on paper fills the air as I glance at the stack of reports on my desk. Allies I once trusted are beginning to doubt me. They question my motives, my judgment, and worse, my loyalty to the kingdom. It's only a matter of time before they realize what I've become: a man who would sacrifice everything, including his honor, just to see someone else fall. "Your Highness," a voice calls from the door, snapping me from my thoughts. I turn to see one of my trusted captains standing in the doorway, his face a mixture of concern and unease. He steps forward cautiously, as though unsure whether I'll react with anger or indifference. "What is it?" I ask, trying to mask the frustration in my voice. "We've secured another lead on Daniel's whereabouts," he says, handing me a map with a red circle around a location. "But I need to ask, Your Highness, are you sure this is the right path?" I glance at the map for a moment, then back at him. His eyes search mine, full of hesitation. He's not the only one questioning my decisions. Everyone is. "What's your concern?" I snap, my voice sharp. I don't mean to sound this way, but the pressure is mounting, and I can't control the tension in my chest. "You've served me loyally, Captain. If you have doubts, I suggest you voice them clearly." The captain swallows hard, his eyes flickering between the map and me. "It's not about loyalty, Your Highness. It's about what we're becoming. This vengeance, it's changing you. The kingdom is starting to feel it." His words hit harder than I expected. For a moment, I freeze. The captain is right. I've been so consumed by revenge that I've forgotten the very thing I swore to protect, my people. The kingdom is unraveling beneath my feet, and I'm too blinded by anger to notice. I lean back in my chair, rubbing my temples. The room feels suffocating, the air thick with the weight of the decisions I've made. What's the point of avenging my betrayal if it means losing everything I hold dear? If it means losing myself? I'll take the lead, I say, my voice a little quieter now. Prepare the men. We move tonight. The captain nods and leaves, but his departure doesn't bring relief. Instead, a deep, gnawing emptiness settles in my gut. The thirst for revenge has consumed me, but now, the taste is bitter on my tongue. Later that night, we march toward the location I've marked on the map. The moon is high above us, casting long shadows on the ground as we move silently through the dark. My mind races, but I can't focus on the task at hand. I think of Daniel and the betrayal that started it all. But more than that, I think of what I've become in my pursuit of him. The cold air stings my face, but it doesn't cut through the fog in my mind. My thoughts are tangled in guilt and anger, each step I take feeling heavier than the last. I've lost sight of why I'm doing this. What's the point of avenging myself if it leaves me isolated and broken? As we approach the building where Daniel is rumored to be, I stop in my tracks. My heart thunders in my chest, but it's not with excitement anymore. It's with dread. The closer I get to him, the further I feel from who I used to be. This vengeance, it's like a poison in my veins, slowly killing me from the inside out. What am I doing? I whisper under my breath, barely loud enough for myself to hear. But the answer doesn't come. Instead, I take another step forward, my hand tightening around the hilt of my sword. I've come too far to turn back now. When we finally reach the building, I hesitate at the door. For a moment, I wonder if it's too late. Have I already lost too much of myself? Have I let this revenge consume me beyond repair? But then I hear the sound of footsteps inside, and I remember why I'm here. I remember Daniel. And with that, the anger floods back in, drowning out the doubts. This is it. I've come too far to stop now. The door opens. Inside, Daniel stands, his back to me. He's so close now. I can almost taste the vengeance on my tongue. But something inside me hesitates. He turns around, and the smirk on his face is everything I expected. I've been expecting you, Michael. I don't answer. I can't. My hands are shaking, and I'm not sure if it's from the cold or the rage. Do you regret it? I finally manage to ask, my voice low. Daniel's smirk only widens. No. Not at all. The words hit me like a slap in the face. For a moment, I can't breathe. I thought I was the one who had been wronged, but now, standing here, face to face with the man who betrayed me, I realize something. My quest for revenge has hollowed me out. And Daniel? He's already won. I stand at the precipice, the weight of my choices pressing on me like 1,000 stone walls. The kingdom, my kingdom, is crumbling around me, and I can feel the tension in the air like a storm waiting to break. The reports are filled with whispers of dissent, murmurs of my failure. My allies, the ones I trusted most, are now questioning everything I've done. And I can't blame them. I've brought this upon us all. I've let my thirst for revenge guide me to this point, where nothing is left but ruins. Ruins of my kingdom, my relationships, and most of all, my soul. Daniel is still out there, somewhere. I've been chasing him for weeks, consumed by the thought of making him pay for what he's done. But with every step I take, I realize that my pursuit of vengeance has turned me into something unrecognizable. I used to be a man of honor, a man who believed in loyalty, justice, and the future of the kingdom. Now, I'm just a shadow of that man, drowning in bitterness and anger. The moon is barely visible through the heavy clouds above, and I find myself standing alone on the balcony of my palace. The cold night air bites at my skin, but it doesn't numb the gnawing ache in my chest. I've spent years building this kingdom, watching it grow, and now it's on the brink of destruction. And for what? For a man who betrayed me? For a false sense of justice? You're a king, Michael, I mutter to myself, my voice barely audible above the wind. But you've forgotten what that means. My eyes move over the distant city, the lights flickering below like the fading hopes I once had. I've pushed away everyone who ever cared about me. My closest advisors, my friends, they're all gone. I've driven them away with my obsession, my desire for revenge. I can see the faces of the people I once trusted, all looking at me with disappointment in their eyes. And the worst part? They're right to feel that way. You've become a monster, I say, the words hitting me harder than I expected. I feel the weight of my own self-loathing sinking deep into my bones. This isn't just about Daniel anymore. It's about what I've become. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps behind me breaks my thoughts. I turn around, and there he stands, the one person who has never turned his back on me. It's Lucas, my oldest friend. He's been with me since the beginning, and his loyalty has never wavered. But even now, I see the doubt in his eyes. It's subtle, but it's there. And it hits me like a slap in the face. You should come inside, he says quietly, his voice tinged with concern. The council is waiting for you. I don't respond immediately. Instead, I turn back to the kingdom, my gaze lingering on the flickering lights below. Do you think I can fix this, Lucas? Do you think I can undo everything I've done? His silence is more painful than any words could be. You've gone too far down this path, Michael, Lucas continues, his voice steady, though I can hear the weight of his concern. The kingdom is on the brink of collapse, and you're still chasing ghosts. You need to make a choice. I turn to face him, finally meeting his eyes. What choice? The choice to let go of this obsession. The choice to lead, to heal. Or you can keep going down this path, and destroy everything you've worked for. I don't want to hear it. I want to keep chasing Daniel. I want to keep fighting, keep avenging my betrayal. But deep down, I know Lucas is right. I can feel it, something inside me is breaking, something I can't control anymore. I can't let him get away with it, I say, my voice filled with bitterness. He's the one who destroyed everything. He's the one who made me this way. You're not the man you were, Lucas responds softly, his words cutting deeper than I care to admit. But you can be. If you choose to be. I want to shout at him, tell him he doesn't understand, but instead, I'm silent. There's nothing I can say that will change the truth in his words. Michael, Lucas says gently, stepping closer. You've lost sight of who you are. This vengeance, it's consuming you. You're not just hurting Daniel anymore. You're hurting yourself. His words hit me like a wave, and for the first time in what feels like forever, I feel something shift inside me. The weight of my decisions, the guilt, the anger, it all crashes down on me, and I feel the walls I've built around my heart start to crumble. What do I do, Lucas? I ask, my voice breaking. I've never felt so lost in my life. How do I stop? You have to choose, he says, his voice full of quiet understanding. You have to decide if you're going to keep fighting the past or if you're going to move forward. It's not easy, but it's the only way. I stand there, the silence between us heavy with the weight of the choice that lies ahead. The thought of letting go, of abandoning my thirst for revenge, fills me with fear. But at the same time, I know that continuing on this path will destroy me, and everything I've worked for. You need to stop chasing him, Lucas says firmly. It's not just about revenge anymore. It's about who you're becoming. You need to reclaim yourself before it's too late. I look at him, searching his face for any sign of doubt. But there's none. Lucas believes in me. And maybe, for the first time, I believe in myself, too. I'm done chasing ghosts, I whisper. I'm done. I turn back to the kingdom, my gaze softening as I look out over the city. For the first time in a long while, I feel a sense of clarity. The path ahead won't be easy, but it's the only one that matters now. The choice has been made. Now, I must live with it. And so, I walk away from the darkness, ready to begin the journey back to the light. It's funny how life can change in the blink of an eye, isn't it? One moment, you're convinced of your purpose, your path is set, and then suddenly, the weight of everything you've been holding on to comes crashing down, and you realize you've been running in circles, chasing shadows. That's how I felt, standing here, facing the man who once meant the world to me, and now, for the first time, I didn't feel the burning need for revenge. I've come a long way since that night. The rage that once fueled me, that fire that burned every ounce of peace in me, is dimming. Slowly, but steadily. I feel like a different man now, and maybe, that's the hardest part to accept, the fact that I had to lose so much to find myself. Daniel, my former friend, the man who destroyed everything I once held dear, stands before me. It's not the confrontation I had imagined for years. I thought it would be filled with fury, with violence, something that would allow me to release all the anger I had bottled up. But now, as I look at him, all I see is nothing. I don't feel the hatred I thought would still be there. Instead, I feel an odd mix of understanding and, dare I say it, pity. I never thought we'd end up here, Daniel says, his voice hollow, devoid of any real emotion. I take a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Neither did I. There's a moment of silence between us, but it's not awkward. It's heavy. The kind of silence that speaks volumes. It feels like we're both waiting for the other to say something, but neither of us really knows where to start. What do you want from me, Michael? Daniel finally asks, his eyes narrowing slightly. He seems more defensive than I've ever seen him, and I can't help but wonder if, for the first time, he's questioning everything he's done. I look at him, really look at him. The man who was once my brother in arms. The man who had so much potential, so much light in him, but chose to walk away from it. And I realize, in that moment, that I'm no longer interested in revenge. Not in the way I once thought. I don't want anything from you, I say softly. I'm not here to destroy you, Daniel. I'm here to understand. His expression shifts, confusion mixed with disbelief. Understand? He laughs bitterly. You want to understand me now? I want to understand why, I reply, my voice steady, though the weight of it feels heavy in my chest. Why you betrayed me, why you chose this path. He looks away, his gaze falling to the ground. You wouldn't understand. You wouldn't get it. Try me, I say, taking a step closer. Because, right now, I don't know who you are anymore. And I need to understand why everything changed. The silence hangs in the air for what feels like eternity. I can see the internal struggle in Daniel's eyes. He's fighting with something, but I don't know what. Finally, he speaks, his voice quieter than before. I wasn't happy, Michael, he admits, his eyes meeting mine. Not the way you think I was. Everything, this kingdom, the people who looked up to me, it all felt like a prison. I thought if I betrayed you, I could finally be free. I frown, not understanding. But at what cost? You betrayed your best friend. Your brother. And you did it for what? Power? No, Daniel says quickly, shaking his head. It wasn't for power. It was for freedom. For a chance to carve my own path, away from the expectations everyone had for me. I stay silent for a moment, processing his words. It's not what I expected, not what I wanted to hear. I had imagined something darker, something more malicious. But this is different. This is about someone who was lost, someone who felt trapped in a life that wasn't his own. And now, as I stand here before him, I realize that maybe, just maybe, I'm not so different from him. We both sought something we didn't know how to get. You never once thought about the people you were leaving behind, I say quietly, the words coming out without bitterness, only sorrow. You never once thought about me. I didn't think about anyone, he says softly, his voice breaking slightly. I only thought about myself. I look at him, and for the first time in a long while, I don't feel anger. Instead, I feel a strange sense of relief. The years of hatred, the years of revenge, they've all led me to this moment. And now that I'm here, I can finally let go. You can't undo what you've done, I say, my voice quiet but firm. But maybe you can start by making things right, in whatever way you can. Daniel looks at me, his eyes wide with uncertainty. You're willing to let me go? I nod slowly. Not for you, but for me. I'm done chasing revenge, Daniel. It's not worth losing myself. He doesn't speak for a long time, but I see something in his eyes that I hadn't expected, regret. Real regret, not the kind that's hollow or forced. But it's too late. His chance for redemption passed when he betrayed me. You can't fix everything, I add quietly. But you can try to do better from here on out. For the first time, Daniel seems to understand. He nods slowly, as though he's finally grasped the magnitude of his actions. I'm sorry, Michael, he says, his voice small. I know, I reply. But I can't carry that burden anymore. It's time to let go. As I turn away from him, I feel something shifting within me. The weight that had been crushing me for so long, the weight of vengeance, the weight of anger, begins to lift. It's not gone completely, but it's lighter now. The path ahead of me is still uncertain, but I know this much, I'm free. Free from the hatred. Free from the pain. And maybe, just maybe, I can rebuild what was lost, not with revenge, but with forgiveness. I stand before the window, staring out at the kingdom that's slowly recovering from the wreckage I left behind. The city, once teetering on the edge of collapse, now seems full of life again. The streets bustle with people, the market stalls are busy, and the sun casts a warm glow over everything. It's almost surreal, how much has changed in such a short time. But then, maybe that's what redemption feels like, knowing that even after everything, the world keeps turning, and it's not too late to make things right. As I look out over the kingdom, my thoughts drift back to where it all started, the betrayal, the anger, the need for revenge that consumed me for so long. It feels like a different lifetime now, but it wasn't that long ago. And as much as I want to believe I've healed, part of me still feels the sting of those days. But the truth is, I don't have time to dwell on it anymore. The kingdom needs me, and I need to be the leader I was always meant to be. The lessons I've learned over the past few months, about forgiveness, about moving on, are the ones that matter now. Your Majesty, a familiar voice interrupts my thoughts, and I turn to see one of my advisors standing in the doorway. He's looking at me with a mix of respect and caution, the same look many of my people have given me since I began to rebuild. There's a weight on my shoulders now, heavier than any crown. "What is it?" I ask, my voice steady but lacking the sharp edge it once had. "We've secured the last of the enemy's strongholds," he reports. "It's over. The final pieces have fallen into place." I nod slowly, but there's no sense of triumph in my heart. What's the point of victory when it costs you so much? When it strips away everything you thought you understood about yourself and the world around you? "I'll be there soon," I tell him, though I know it's not just a matter of settling the kingdom's affairs. There's still more to be done. Rebuilding trust with my allies. Restoring my honor. But most importantly, healing the wounds I've caused. The ones I inflicted on myself, as much as on the kingdom. As my advisor exits, I sit back down at my desk, my eyes lingering on the papers in front of me, documents I've avoided for far too long. The weight of leadership doesn't feel as heavy now, but the work is far from over. The kingdom may be recovering, but the damage I did to the relationships that once meant so much to me still stings. I think about Daniel. I've let go of the anger. I've accepted that the past is behind me. But what about him? Where does he fit into this new beginning? His actions, his betrayal, still echo in the halls of this castle, but I've learned to let go. I won't chase him down again. The battle with him is over. He's gone, and what's left is a man who has learned what it truly means to forgive, even when it feels impossible. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. I'll never forget what he did, nor will I ever let that mistake define who I am now. I will remember the lessons about the danger of revenge, the importance of understanding, and carry them with me. And maybe, just maybe, that's the redemption I need. Not for him, but for me. The door to my chambers opens again, and this time, it's one of my closest allies. We haven't spoken much since the fallout, but the time has come to rebuild those connections. "Michael," she says, her voice hesitant but sincere. "We need to talk." I look up, meeting her gaze. There's a time to apologize, and a time to move forward. I'm ready for both. "I know," I reply, my voice calm but unwavering. It's time to rebuild. The days that follow are filled with conversations, long, difficult talks with those I once thought of as allies, those I let down in my pursuit of revenge. They're not easy, but they're necessary. I have to prove to them that I'm worthy of their trust again. I have to show them that I'm more than the broken man I was. There's a shift in the air as the kingdom begins to stabilize. The nobles who once questioned my judgment now sit with me at the table, strategizing ways to heal the kingdom. The tension that once hung over everything slowly lifts, and for the first time in what feels like forever, I can breathe again. But it's not just the kingdom that needs healing. It's me. And it's in these quiet moments, when the weight of the past fades away, that I realize something. Forgiveness isn't easy, I whisper to myself, looking out at the sun setting over the city. But it's worth it. I'm learning to forgive myself. To accept the mistakes I've made and to move forward, not because I can forget, but because I know it's the only way to truly rebuild. To start anew. And as the kingdom's future takes shape, I feel the first true glimmer of peace settle in my chest. This is the new beginning. Not just for the kingdom, but for me as well.